Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today to learn a little bit more about this opportunity, and then, of course, answer any questions that you have about applying if you're interested, or sharing this opportunity with others who you think might be interested in applying. And then we will go ahead and get going. And thank you, Anna, for letting folks into the room. So for today, for this virtual bidders conference, essentially the goals really are just to give some background information about the community reinvestment project, how that specifically relates to this opportunity, that I'll share more information about the request for proposals that was released, a bit more details about what's included in that, the application process, and then guidance on how to seek support, and then, of course, answer any questions that y'all have during this time, and then any questions that are asked that we give answers to, that will also get posted on that RFP page, and there will be a recording of this as well that you'll be able to access through the site. For just a couple of housekeeping items, there's absolutely going to be time for questions. I have a slide towards the end, but I tend to just kind of pause throughout, just since it's a little bit more real time. But if you're not asking a question, do your best to stay muted, just to kind of reduce some of the background noise. If you have a question, outside of going off mute and asking it, it's also really helpful to add it to the chat, and that just helps us do a little bit better job with tracking those to make sure that we can get them added to the FAQ so that they're available. And then again, we're recording this, so this will get posted for your reference so that you have it available. I'm assuming most folks have been able to find it, but just in case, this RFP request for proposals announcement with all of the information can be found on our website. If you're at the home screen, you will go to this investments here at the top bar. Funding opportunities will show as an option. And then if you click on that, it will pull up this page for you. And the opportunity we're talking about today is that first one listed there, the RFP 25-01. A little bit about the Community Reinvestment Project as a whole, and I'm going to assume that maybe not all, but most folks are probably pretty familiar with this at this point. So often referred to as CRP. It's a community design initiative to uplift communities disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs. So the goal of this project and plan was to create lasting economic benefits, build wealth, and ensure everyone has a fair chance at success. And I've linked or provided the link for the Commerce website, the Community Reinvestment Project page. It's a wealth of information about, last cycle, what was done, some of the impacts around that, and then, of course, the most up-to-date information for this current cycle. And on that Commerce webpage, there is an option, I believe it's on the right-hand side, if you scroll just a little bit down, to sign up for Commerce's email updates and alerts related to the Community Reinvestment Project. And that is not just this opportunity, but this is the best way to kind of learn about all the opportunities and updates that Commerce is putting out related to CRP. So if you're not already on that list, highly recommend it so you can get the most updated information from Commerce as they release more information and opportunities related to CRP. CRP, again, many folks here are probably familiar with the work from last year and last cycle, but CRP partners with organizations across the state to support kind of 4 core areas. So economic development, reentry services, legal assistance, and violent prevention. Our work in this specific opportunity is housed under that economic development pillar. And in collaboration, of course, with, community partners, those that have been, contracted with, and other providers. CRP's impact includes things like, creating jobs, in partnership with businesses, being able to offer training programs, working towards higher self-sufficient incomes for folks and so that they can support their families, helping people acquire homes and start new businesses, and then increasing safety of neighborhoods through community-led and design projects. For this new cycle, the current cycle that we're in, this 2025 to 2027, there were some funding updates and changes. It's less funding than we saw for the previous cycle, but still some funding, which is great. For this cycle, the Community Reinvestment Program, CRP, received $60 million for this time. So that included $50 million in new funds, and up to 10 that were reallocated from the previous biennium. So that's, total for this 2025 to 2027 period. And then, per legislative direction, funds are going to be distributed in alignment with those investment areas that I shared on the previous slide. And again, this is all available on the Commerce webpage. So Commerce is directed to distribute the funds to the program areas that are listed in that RCW, again, available on their page, in similar proportions to what we saw in 2023 to 25. And then the legislature also defined by and for organizations for the purpose of CRP, to include but not be limited to those operated by and for Black, Latino, Native American, Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. So an update from the previous cycle. Under this CRP, Community Reinvestment Plan or Project funding, the Department of Commerce allocates some of these funds in partnership with EXA, which stands for Economic Security for All, to the Career Accelerator incentives and match saving investment accounts for individuals. And then where this opportunity is housed is under the business support, and that's funding to provide business navigation services and business grants to support business startup, recovery, and growth. And so these business supports and this program is intended, again, to primarily support the community reinvestment businesses, so those priority populations, which are again defined as Black, Tribal, Latino, Asian, Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander owned or operated businesses, of course, and then also individuals from these communities who are interested in starting a business or maybe have but are in that pre-revenue stage. And then, related to this partnership with EXA, those that, of course, having a focus on our EXA participants or businesses who employ or plan to hire EXA participants. So this is kind of condensed version of it, and again, all available on the website and in the details of the RFP announcement, just showing a little bit though of the funding kind of funnel and stream where this funding is coming from as it relates to CRP, and just those focus areas around, of course, serving priority populations, this connection to, workforce development and business support with that additional focus of EXA participants or businesses who plan to employ or hire them. Okay, so I'll move into this next section here, but if any questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat, and there'll be more time for questions as well. So overview for this opportunity. So kind of in line with that background that we shared, there is going to be the opportunity to offer business support grants to individuals who are interested in starting a business and businesses who, want to stabilize or grow. So in doing that, we, the WDC, Workforce Development Council of Seattle-King County, is seeking proposals from by and for community organizations to serve as intermediary partners for these grants. And again, a bit of that, funding background information there on the slide. So by and for organizations are those that are operated by and for the community they serve, with leadership and staff reflecting the racial, ethnic, and cultural identities of that community. And again, you'll see those priority population listed there. So this is an opportunity to, as we're supporting businesses and individuals with getting business support through business grants, really having that managed, resourced, and supported by community organizations by and for organizations who are already doing the work and deeply connected with community. This is a overview timeline of this RFP opportunity. So it was released on October 23rd. Virtual Bidders Conference is today, right now, November 3rd. And then everyone will have up until November 14th to submit questions, and that can come through this virtual bidder conference now, or they can be emailed to us, and I will share that information. But those can be submitted up until November 14th. They will get posted to the website, to the RFP page. Application submissions will close. The deadline there is November 21st. And then we're hoping and anticipating to make award notifications to those that are selected by December 17th. Then looking to get folks on board and contracts executed towards the end of December, very beginning of January. Holidays can make it difficult. And then hoping to have those selected organizations prepared and supported to launch those CRF business grants in January, possibly into February. And as you review kind of the RFP materials and announcement, you'll see that in acting as intermediaries, a lot of those documents, tools, processes, those are going to be provided to the selected organizations. So like the application, the scorecard, reporting forms, so kind of anything that would be needed to get going quickly and get moving. And elements of those will also be collaborated and co-designed with the selected by and for organizations. For submission, what time is the deadline? Great question. I know it's up on a prior slide or on a later slide, but I will grab it. But I believe it is 11:59 p.m. on that date. So just before midnight on November 21st, which I believe is a Friday. Great question. So this funding opportunity, again, serving as intermediary partners for these CRF business support grants. So that scope of work or the work that would ask to be engaged in is, posting, promoting, managing that CRF business grant opportunity. Thank you, Anna. Providing low barrier culturally relevant outreach and application support. And that will be supported, with the CRF Business Navigator. And then there's also some additional organizations such as those that are a part of like the Small Business Resiliency Network through Commerce that I know are offering some technical assistance and support. From the opportunity, scoring and awarding grants across 3 tiers. There'll be 3 structured tiers within the grant opportunity. So one for that startup and early stage at a lower grant amount, a little bit higher for those that are interested in stabilization and recovery activities. And then the highest amount, $10,000 for those businesses that are looking to do growth and expansion. So from the grant amount, there's 3 tiers, and then approximately, from the funds that will be managed, it will work out to roughly about 17 awards for that tier 1, that startup, about 15 for that tier 2, that stabilization and recovery, and then approximately 24 or so awards for growth and expansion. So once the applications are scored and awarded across these tiers, the selected organizations will really support our grantees with their implementation, provide some of that technical assistance and support them with that required reporting and some training that they will be asked to engage with. And then, of course, collecting and tracking the project data and sharing that to us, the WDC, and then participating in some of those coordination and collaboration meetings as the opportunity is being released and managed. And then, of course, for opportunities around, for conversations around, co-design and collaboration to ensure that communities and businesses are feeling very supported in applying. And then, of course, implementing the grants. For this funding opportunity, the WC will select either 2 intermediary partners, and each one would manage, if 2 are selected, each one would manage $200,000 in grant funds. With a $55,000 budget to administer the project. Or if an organization feels equipped, has the capacity and kind of like deep connection with a multitude of priority populations, there is the potential to have one sole intermediary partner to execute the full amount of grant funding or manage the full amount of grant funding, which is $400,000, with $110,000 in administrative funding available to that organization to do that work. To be eligible, to be eligible to apply for this RFP, we are inviting proposals, of course, from by and for organizations. So they must meet the Washington State Department of Commerce's definition of a by and for organization, demonstrate staff capacity and experience, managing grants, small business programs, or something similar to that. Be licensed and located within King County, or serving King County CRP priority populations through programs that directly benefit King County businesses or residents. And then for those organizations that may not be located, within King County, they may be considered if they fill a demonstrated service gap or provide a unique or specialized program that's not otherwise locally available in the area. And then, of course, having a strong history and mission, then strong history of serving CRP priority population and a mission and work that's aligned with that. For those organization that is selected for this work, if you were not already verified as a by and for organization in the previous cycle, then there is a process to kind of complete that verification and get approved. And that would need to be done, prior to starting the contract and acting as the intermediary. And then federally recognized tribes are automatically considered by and for and do not require that verification. To apply for this RFP, you'll want to go to the site that we shared earlier that Anna was lovely enough to put the link in the chat to. So you'll want to view that page. The webpage itself is, again, like a high but deeper level summary than this. And then it does link and provide the full RFP announcement. So that provides very detailed information, more detailed information on the background as well. And then, of course, the detailed, submission instructions and what should be included in the proposals. And then for those that are interested in applying, they'll submit their proposal formatted as a PDF in a 12-point font, and then that will be submitted electronically via email to proposals@ckingwdc.org, and you'll want to have RFP 2501 in the subject line. And Anna, who's on this call, has done a beautiful job. So when you actually click to apply, it will generate an email for you that will automatically have that subject line in there. Proposals responses are due Friday, November 21st by 11:59 p.m. We have no plans to accept late submissions. If that changes, that will get shared on that RFP page, but I would absolutely plan for that deadline. Again, email where proposals should go, and then PDF format in 12-point font. And then again, a bit of iteration or a duplication here, but just making sure if you do have questions after you've reviewed that material, making sure those are submitted by email to that same email, the proposals@ckingwc.org by November 14th by 5 p.m. so that can get answered and then posted to that FAQ section of the RFP webpage so you have access to that information. For application scoring, and this is available on the RFP page in the full RFP announcement, responses are going to be evaluated based on criteria that includes, mission and alignment with the definition of a by and for organization, community reach and engagement with those CRP priority populations, project approach and work plan, the organizational capacity, relevant experience, and resource planning. And that rating criteria is available with all the evaluation categories, descriptions, and the points that are to be allocated to each one of those areas. For the logistical information, just as you're applying, gathering information, looking for updates, it's all going to be available on that RFP page. There's the email again there for the Q&A process where you can send your questions. And then just a snapshot of the timeline. On the RFP page, you'll also find some documents and resources. So that full RFP announcement, the frequently asked questions that'll get updated, a flyer, and then there are some links to some helpful information and policies. So one of that being ESD policy 7005, which contains that specific state policy related to this area of CRP funding and programming. Of course, the Washington State Department of Commerce website, the Community Reinvestment Plan page is a great resource and to learn about just upcoming opportunities, what's happening with the work. And then if you are new to EXA, Economic Security for All, or just want a bit more information about understanding that or how it relates, there are some helpful links available on that RFP page as well. For the evaluation process, all applications that get received prior to that deadline will be reviewed for eligibility and completeness. They'll then, all of them that, of course, fully filled out and eligible, they'll be scored using that rating criteria that's available. And evaluators may include, but aren't limited to, members of local community organizations, local community members, and WDC staff. Once that scoring is done and those selections have been made, those recommended awardees will be put forward to our board for that final approval. And once we have approval from the board, applicants will get notified of the decision. And then there is an appeals process and access to evaluation information. So if you did want to appeal a decision, it just needs to be done in writing within 7 calendar days from the date of the notice of award decision. And then in terms of additional supports and resources, we will continue to send out information about any future opportunities available through this funding. And then, of course, be happy to connect folks to any of the available existing WorkSource services and programs that we have or are aware of that folks might be interested in. And I'll pause here because I was just going to go through the actual web pages with folks quickly, just so you could, have eyes on it, answer any other questions that there might be. But I'll pause here in case there are any questions before I do that. Okay, sounds good. So I will stop sharing for just a moment here so that I can pull up the web pages that I referenced. Okay, so this first page, this is the Department of Commerce Community Reinvestment Program CRP page. So here you'll see the summary, the funding updates related to this biennium, and they've added some helpful links in here as well in case you want to do a deep dive. Speaks to the funding allocations and what's being focused on. And then you can find some of their news and updates here, along with some of the stories that came out of the previous cycle's work. This spot right here is the subscribe for the email address that I mentioned. From the CRP feedback and community meetings I've been attending, it still sounds like signing up for these email alerts here is still the best and fastest way to get updates about the CRP opportunities that Commerce is going to be putting out and making available. So if you haven't already, I would highly recommend subscribing to this email list. The other kind of resource link that was referenced is the Washington State Program Policy, the 7005, and this is revision 2 for the current cycle that we're in. So it's a little lengthier, but does a good job of speaking to the purpose, the background, and then some of the specific policy and eligibility related to this funding and programming. So helpful for context and just a deeper understanding of it. You'll see things for incentives and MISA. The portion related to this RFP opportunity that you'll be looking for is the EXA business support. So it goes into it in a bit more detail. And then there's also a frequently asked question for that funding as well. And this is all linked in the RFP page that we have, which is here. So this is from our website, the seekingwc.org. Again, if you're looking for this page, you'll go to investments, hover there, and then click on funding opportunities. It's this first one located here. So again, Anna, I just can't say enough wonderful things about you because she did a superb and beautiful job. But you'll have a table of contents up here, so you can click if you like, so it will help jump you to the appropriate place in the page. But there's the overview, much of what we talked about today, the funding opportunity, some background about the project, and overall the objectives of these business grants, the scope of work that the selected intermediary partners will do, the eligibility criteria and qualifications, application information on how to apply and submit the proposals, the timeline, frequently asked questions. So this is where, questions and answers will go that we received during this process. The virtual bidders conference happening now. So what you'll see at this page will be the link to this recording that's happening now in case you want to reference that. And then for some documents and resources. So there is a flyer if you'd like to share that. Again, a link to the frequently asked questions. And then these are the resources that were referenced just in case that's helpful for you in terms of getting a deeper understanding or just putting putting your narrative together for the proposal response. I believe it's this one here. So when you're ready to submit, we'll see if it works or if it'll show on the screen. If you click submit your proposal, then it should auto pull up for you, which it may not show. I probably won't show on my screen, but it will pull up. So it will already have the email in there along with the appropriate subject line that should be in there. Don't have to do it that way, but I thought that was a very thoughtful touch that Anna put in. Everything on this page is, again, deeper than this, but still higher level. So that full RFP announcement with all of the detailed information, there's a few links to it here, but easiest one is just to click on this first button to read the full RFP announcement. And this is, I apologize, but I wanted to make sure folks had a lot of the information. It's hit that 10-page mark, but it goes into a bit more detail with the background without you having to go too deeply into a lot of other resources. Our role in this work, and then specific to the CRP, funded programs and these grants, a much more detailed scope of work that's available here. Information about the funding and contract term, the eligibility criteria and qualifications, and then the proposal response. This is where you'll find each area of that narrative that you'll want to speak to in your proposal. So first is contract preference, so indicating if you'd like to be one of 2 intermediary partners that plan to be selected, or if you would like to apply as the sole intermediary partner, and then specifying if you applied as the sole but are possibly being considered to be selected of one of 2, would you still be interested in that? Sharing your organizational profile, so an overview of your organization's, mission and history, describing the communities and populations that you serve. There's community reach and alignment, that connection to the CRP priority populations, how you're building trust with community and engaging them, highlighting any existing partnerships or networks you have that could be leveraged to support folks, your project approach and work plan for the scope of work that's outlined, information about your organizational capacity and experience, and then some information about your budget and resource planning. And then there are, you can include optional attachments if you like. So letters of support, MOUs, if you have impact reports or partnership agreements, but anything that you think speaks to, what you've outlined in your narrative response. Rating criteria is available here as well. So kind of mirroring what's asked in that narrative. This is each category and a description of that category. The proposal submission instructions, again, the key dates and additional information regarding to the timeline. And again, those helpful document and resource links. So that's all available in that full RFP announcement and application. And I'm just reviewing this. Yes.
Sorry. Really quickly, we did receive a question in the Q&A from Monica, and the question was, has this RFP been offered before? If so, could you share the previous successful bidders?
Great question. So no, this RFP has not been offered before. With the previous cycle, we did put out RFP opportunities, but it was for us to directly manage the grants. So there were 2 different ones that were put out, and I can show those. If you'd like reference for those, you can find them by going to that same funding opportunities page on our website. There's one here, so the Small Business Workforce Accelerator grant. So you can see that, but again, that was us directly managing those grants. And then we did work in contract with some buy and for organizations to provide some additional support and resourcing to the awardees from those grants. And then the other one was the small business investment grant, which is listed here. And then if you go in, there are updates. So it will show, like who was selected, and the information that was released about those. But great question. And we kind of aligned with that is in our work last year, we did work with some intermediary grant partners for smaller amounts of funding, and then did contract with additional buy and for organizations to, again, provide some of that support, technical assistance, mentorship to awardees from the small business grants. So those that have either worked with us in a capacity around CRP, or maybe you were engaged with other commerce CRP programs or support, definitely like highly encouraged to apply and take that knowledge and experience into an opportunity like this. Any other questions that folks have? I just reviewed my prior slide, and it's just a thank you slide, which I feel like I probably don't need to re-navigate to the PowerPoint to show that. If you're interested in sharing this opportunity with folks as well, sharing this link, of course, and then there is under the documents and resources, you can find the informational flyer. So that flyer can be shared if there are other organizations that you're aware of or in your networks who you think would be interested in applying that you want to share this with. Okay, so I see there's a question, is technical assistance provided for review of proposals? So for technical assistance provided for these, if they are application-specific questions, similar to the ones that we're getting or ones that you encounter, you'll want to submit those to that proposal email that is listed so that it can get answered and then posted to that FAQ page. Then that information is available to all applicants. If it is technical assistance in terms of wanting support with, possibly like technical access or language access, then if you can submit that to the proposals email, and we have a network of supports who, depending on the question, the need, may be able to support with that. The last update that I also got as well is that the Small Business Resiliency Network through the Department of Commerce, they are again offering technical assistance and supports for individuals and organizations who are applying for CRP programs and opportunities. So that could be another additional layer of technical assistance. We don't have like prior review of proposals outside of once they're submitted, they will get evaluated and scored, but there's no pre-submission review of proposals. So I see another question. Says, oh, sorry.
I was about to say, yeah, there's another question. Yeah.
I know. I feel eventually I'll learn how to structure this better so I don't do the chat and the Q&A, because then I forget to flip back and forth. But so a question was asked, roughly how many proposals did you have the last time this was offered? So we did not have an RFP like this for intermediary buy-in for organizations for the grants. For the grant applications last time, where we directly administered those for our first round of grants, we had a very high number of applications. I want to say it was almost, gosh, it's been a while now. It was around 400 applications, I believe. Again, that was directly for those grants. And then we adjusted the process for our second round of direct grants that we did. So the application opening was put out in advance. So we accepted the first 40 applications that were submitted for review, and then folks could still apply after that first 40 were accepted, and then were pulled up from that application list in the order that they were received if some of those first 40 applicants did not meet eligibility criteria, didn't have full proposals and things like that. So I imagine, because this is different in terms of managing and acting as a grant intermediary versus applying for the grant funds, I would be surprised if we had 400 applicants. I don't want to put a number to it because I'm not sure, but I would say likely significantly less than the 400 just because of the nature of the work. It was a long way to give a non-answer. And I'm just looking back, make sure. Anna, does it look like I've missed any questions?
No, it looks like you got all the questions from the chat and the Q&A.
Okay, that's the goal. Well, yeah, if there's no other questions at this time, that's completely all right. That proposals email here, this is available to you. So any questions that you have, so the questions that got asked today, this recording will be on, and then these questions will get put on the FAQ section of the page. But yeah, as you've had the chance to review, definitely any questions that you have, submit them to that proposals email prior to the deadline, November 14th by 5 p.m. so that they can get answered, so you have that information. And I'm hoping to write this, isn't a narrative format. There is the opportunity to include some additional attachments. We want this to be open and get a lot of great applicants, and at the same time not create huge barriers to application. So in the application, really just making sure that you're speaking to those areas and criterias that are listed there, so that we can make sure we're engaging with the best possible partners to, of course, execute this work, but then really ensure that we are serving community and priority populations well, and in a way that feels aligned and relevant and safe. Okay, well, if there are no other questions at this time, then I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy days to join us, to learn more about the opportunity, and we'll get this posted, the recording of this posted to the website, along with the Q&A for the questions that were asked. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.